What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is the segment on my channel where I go back through A24's entire filmography from the first film they released all the way until whenever I get caught up. And I'm above 80 movies now, and it's been really fascinating to kind of like step back and look at A24's filmography now that I've watched such like a large bulk of the movies that they've made. And throughout this journey, there have been movies obviously that are very well renowned or that I've already seen. And every now and again, there's a movie that I'm like, I genuinely have never heard of this. And this is one of those instances. I had never heard of this movie. I feel like this had to be one of those instances where A24 did a really poor job with marketing. From what I was reading online, I think the release of this movie was partnered with HBO. And I'm not even sure if it got a full theatrical release, but there was a lot of talent involved in the movie. And the plot description after I read it sounded relatively interesting. And I was looking forward to it and hoping this would be like a hidden gem in A24's catalog. And the movie I'm going to be telling you about today is Native Son. Native Son is directed by Rashid Johnson. A young black man named Bigger Thomas takes a job working for a highly influential Chicago family, a decision that will change the course of his life forever. So I was very excited to watch this movie. Like I said, I always really look forward to watching some of these A24 films that I haven't heard of before or haven't seen mentioned as much. And what I will say about this movie is it's loaded with potential. The first half of this movie, I was honestly hooked to the screen. I thought it was incredibly immersive. I was just enthralled by the performances. And something happens in this movie towards the end. It's a big event that kind of changes the trajectory of the movie. And everything post that event is written in a way that comes across as so just confusing and really nonsensical with the decision of the lead character. And I'm going to talk about spoilers later on in this because it's really hard to talk about a lot of my issues with the movie without revealing the spoiler. But I didn't enjoy this movie as a whole because of just how baffling the back half of this film is. And I'll talk about it a little bit more when I break the movie down for you today. So at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Bigger Thomas, played by Ashton Sanders, who a lot of people know from Moonlight. And his friends all call him Big. And we see him in his day-to-day life and how he kind of operates, the types of jobs that he does. We see that like as a young black man, he's super into punk music and hardcore music. He seems to be very well educated, and he's living his day-to-day life in a community where he feels kind of like the opposite of everyone else in his community. He's not super into hip hop. He doesn't really want to get involved in a lot of the trouble that a lot of the people around him gets involved in. And for that very reason, he's trying to look for a job to make money, to kind of, be on the straight and narrow, essentially. He wants to get out of his current situation and do something different with his life. And he has a girlfriend, and the two of them are very happy together. We see early on they have fun spending time together. They seem to be very clearly in love. And he gets the opportunity from this wealthy white family to be their driver. They're going to pay him to drive them from place to place. They give him a room at the house that he can either stay in full time, or at least when he's on the clock that he can take them back and forth. And the daughter of the wealthy white family is Mary, played by Margaret Qualley. And she seems to be very interested in Big from early on. She has her own boyfriend, but she seems to be just kind of enthralled by him, wants to learn more about him. And the entirety of the film is the relationship between these two characters and how Big worries like the closer that he gets to her, it could threaten his job or that he could lose his job. And the series of events that occurs after these two characters start to become closer. So like I said, this movie feels like a ton of wasted potential because of where it goes in the third act. And I want to start with the positives. All of the performances in this movie are great. I really enjoyed all of the actors in this movie, but Ashton Sanders in particular, he has a lot of really fantastic moments where like he'll deliver voiceover monologues, and he's just a very compelling actor. He does a really great job embodying this character in a way that's very believable. I love all his different quirks and personality traits, and I think because he gives such a fantastic lead performance, it makes the movie very watchable. He was one of the reasons why I was so invested from the very first frame. And there are a ton of great actors and actresses in this. This is like earlier in Margaret Qualley's career, and it was cool to see her in something else because I just really like Margaret Qualley. I've appreciated her career throughout its whole trajectory thus far, and she does a really nice job in this movie. And so the performances are all really great. The movie looks really nice. I feel like there are some moments where the color grading and like the lighting are a little bit too dark, but I do think the shot selections in this movie and where they place the camera, they do a really nice job creating this environment and showing kind of the differences between where Big comes from and like living with these very wealthy people essentially in their luxury mansion. And I think there's a really great job kind of creating a dichotomy between those two worlds, which plays such a big part thematically in what the director is trying to go for. And I really like the choices of music in this movie. There's always kind of this sinister undertone. There's like lighter moments, but the movie goes in a very like dark direction. And so I think like having music that cues in every now and again that's not necessarily like beat you over the head where it's like, oh my god, something bad is right around the corner, but just enough to where you feel unsettled through the runtime of the movie. That's what I think works to the film's benefit the most. I think this movie, it attempts to cover a wide array of social commentary in regards to race, where I feel like some of it works very well, but other moments it doesn't pay off. And I think ultimately the issue that I have with this movie is where it goes in the third act. But like early on, there's a lot about like, these white characters, they feel like they're trying really hard to understand, the experience of black people in the United States, and black people that come from lower income areas or places that, aren't necessarily as well off. And it seems like they're trying to do the right thing, but it also comes across as they're completely misinformed. And the director is trying to really kind of paint this picture that I think is so very true to the lived experience in the United States of America, which is that so many white people that live in a bubble, like they've only lived in one community their entire lives, they haven't really gone out and explored the world and seen the differences of day-to-day life, really 100% grasp the differences in there. And then like also this way that like white people can often discuss black people, where like I really enjoyed it. There was a scene where Big and his girlfriend are at this restaurant with Margaret Qualley's character and her boyfriend, and like he says this line of dialogue, I can't say it in particular, where it's like he makes a comment where he's like, don't worry, I'll tell everybody at the black people meeting or something like that. Essentially looking at her and being like, hey, like the way you're talking about this, like you need to remember we're people, like we're still people. You're talking about black people as like a foreign concept, and it's like we're human beings just like you. And I think that's also like a really important element of this conversation, is that like, that you cannot ever diminish the experience of black Americans and black people in general, and the racism that they've suffered throughout the years, and the horrible unnecessary stereotypes and discriminations that exist, but also remembering like they're people, like talking about them as this like foreign concept, especially like right in front of their faces. I just think that that's really poignant, and there's something very thoughtful and well done about that dialogue. But outside of some of those things, where it goes in the third act is my issue. And so from here on out, I have to talk about spoilers. I really can't discuss any more of this movie without giving away the ending. And so if you want to watch the movie without getting the spoilers, I'm going to talk about spoilers from here on out. So the big twist in the movie is Big ends up giving Margaret Qualley's character drugs, and she gets very high, and he takes her back home, and he takes her into her room to kind of lay her down so that she can go to sleep and kind of have the drugs wear off. And her mother, who is blind, comes home, and she's like making a ton of noise, and he's scared that if the mother finds him in her bedroom, that he's going to lose his job, that his life is going to fall apart. And he ends up unintentionally suffocating her with a pillow, and she dies. And he ends up having to dump her body. He goes into the basement. They have a giant furnace, so he burns her body so that they'll never find the evidence. And the remainder of the movie turns into this very sinister, dark, saddening movie about this guy who had so much optimism for where his life was going to go, and like this one mistake kind of destroys it, and then like at the end of the movie he ends up getting shot, which is just like adding more insult to injury. And the issue that I have with this is I can understand what the director is trying to go for, where it's like a person can do the best that they can with their life and they can still make a mistake and it can ruin the entire course of what they had hoped for. But I think in this particular case, you're building up this character who is incredibly intelligent. He's into like counterculture, he's very educated, and you're spending so much time talking about just how like intellectual this kid is, and he makes the dumbest mistake imaginable, a mistake that is easily avoidable, like completely and totally avoidable. He could have literally, the mom is blind, he could have literally just ran out of the room and like acted like he never had any part of this. And there's so many different ways that that situation could have gone, and I feel like that it just comes across as like everything that you were going for in the movie gets erased, and it becomes like a very straightforward after school special kind of drama, which is what I didn't like about this movie. And then the end, the pacing of it is really weird. Like it doesn't, none of it sticks in a way that I feel like hits very hard. Like even when he dies at the end of the movie, I was like, okay, this is really the only direction that it could possibly go. And I think the director thought that it was going to have this very intense emotional gut punch, and it unfortunately doesn't, because it plays out in a cliche. And the thing is like the cliche of him dying at the end of the movie doesn't really do anything to attribute to a lot of the larger conversations that the director is having surrounding race, which makes the movie feel like, why did I spend an hour and 40 minutes with these characters if it was just going to go in this direction? Where like you could take it this way, but I feel like the death of Margaret Qualley's character is handled in a way that is just so lazy, and I don't understand why it went that direction. And I did read online that this is based off of a book that does not take place in modern day, which like in that particular case, especially with the stigma around drug use and things of that nature, if that's where the book goes, I'm not completely sure. Maybe it would work a little bit better, but for modern day it doesn't translate in a way that works very well. And I read a lot of different reviews that people that have read the book that said that the book does a better job with all of it, and that this probably just can't translate to film in the way that it can in book form. And sometimes that's just the case. And I don't know, like by the end of this, I just felt like all of the interesting social commentary surrounding race that was in this movie didn't pay off in a way that was satisfying, or that felt worth an hour and 40-minute watch. And that's incredibly unfortunate because, like I said, it's well shot. There's some incredible performances. I really enjoyed the musical choices and a lot of the conversations had surrounding race early on in the movie, but it just doesn't pay off in a way that I could really recommend it to you. Have you seen Native Son? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredibly underwhelming and disappointing because of where it goes in the third act. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.